Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm excited you guys are joining me on this episode and this video to share with you guys on what I do on a typical day of training in the air. Hope you guys enjoy and we'll gain some invaluable insight on what it's like to be a student aviator. Now after I finish pre-flight, it's time to jump inside the plane. I'm going to put on my seatbelt and harness and pull out my checklist and my iPad. Then before starting the engine, I'm going to look outside, make sure that it's clear. Prop clear. Now that the engine is running, I'm going to go ahead and check engine gauges and make sure that they're all in the green. Now it's time to set the GPS and get the weather for today's flight. By this point, my flight instructor and I have already briefed on what we will be doing for the day, what our maneuvers we will be training for, and where we will practice for our location. Now we check our brakes. Before we're ready to taxi, we do a run-up, where we check engine gauges and flight controls to make sure that they're all working properly.
Because you can take off if your vertical speed's indicating 100, that just becomes your new zero. If that makes sense. It doesn't have to read zero as you're sitting here. You can read like 100 or 200, but then that's your new zero. You just gotta note that.
Now it's time to communicate ground control and get our taxi instruction. Whoa, ground sky 20544 on University ramp, ready to taxi for south departure.
204, ground runway 20, back to me up, wind calm, altimeter 3027.
Clear to taxi, runway 20 via Alpha, sky 205, and be done.
Start getting your diagram done, because they're going to want to see that. They're going to actually see you brief it on the chart.
Now that we have our taxi instructions, we're going to go ahead and line up on runway 20. My flight instructor is just briefing me that we should always verify on where we're going to taxi before we actually taxi. Volvo Altair Sky 20544 holding short of runway 20, ready for takeoff. Ready for takeoff, runway 20 sky 20544. Takeoff and landings are my favorite part. And while we're climbing, I'm still going to continue to monitor the engine gauges to make sure that they're all in green, as I maintain my heading and look for my altitude. Now I'm entering slow flight, where I make some shallow turns to the left to get on my new heading. This is where I pay close attention to my airspeed and my altitude. Now I'm preparing for my power off stall, where I pull the throttle back to 1500 RPM, pull the car gate out, and pitch down for 65 knots as I slow the aircraft down. Completely back to idle, and pitch the nose up until I enter a full stall. During this power off stall, you can see that I entered a pretty significant drop, which kind of made me feel uncomfortable for a minute, but quickly regained control of the aircraft. Stalls are a complicated creature. You definitely want to be wary of them and careful of them at low altitudes, but at higher altitudes, they're perfectly safe and a stable aircraft. So for about the next half hour of flight, I practiced some more maneuvers, some shallow turns, steep turns, and turns around a point, which are some of my very favorite training exercises to do. Now it's time to head back to the airport, where I run through my descent checklist, listen to the weather, and communicate with air traffic control. Here's a picture of the pattern we usually fly as we enter the Walla Walla Regional Airport Class Delta airspace. You will see that it's only comprised of about 4 legs: the upwind as you take off, the crosswind as you take a left, and the downwind as you go parallel to the airport. This is the left downwind, since you are on the left side of the airport if you were to take off. Usually on this part of the leg is where you reduce your power. Once you reach the 1,000-foot markers, you're going to pitch for 70 knots and start making your final turns for landing. For the sake of time, I edited most of the touch and goes out of the video, but left the final land so you can see what it would normally be like. This part of the flight is the most demanding of your attention, since there are many small corrections you need to make with the flight controls and throttle. Unfortunately, this is the part of the video where my camera died, so I wasn't able to film the last part of the taxi debrief, but that will be in the next coming videos, so stay tuned. And please note that this video is not meant for training purposes. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next videos. Bye-bye.